The federal government has decided to send a 1,000-strong force to stop the bandits in Zamfara state, responsible for the deaths of hundreds this year alone.
Yeah, the security force comprising the Army, Air Force, Police and the Civil Defense have been assembled to launch fierce attacks on the bandits terrorizing villages and towns in the state. A presidency statement says the Air Force has begun the deployment of fighter aircraft to Katsina, the airport closest to Zamfara. The presidency is also appealing to Nigerians to unite and speak with one voice on security issues. Well, we have joining us a security consultant, Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, retired. Good morning.
Thanks, good morning.
It's nice to have you join us.
Nice meeting you guys again.
Right. Yeah. Now, the first time Nigerians heard of, just a few days ago, when Nigerians heard on the papers that 1,000 contingent of the army or deployment of the army will be sent to Zamfara state. Some people were actually happy, yeah, but a lot still think that this is coming a little too late.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for bringing me out here again once more. And the situation in Zamfara, like it is, stands condemned by every well-meaning Nigerian. And it's not about affiliations. It's more of sympathy and the humanity in us, so to speak. Okay, so I would say my sympathy goes out to all the communities that are under siege in Zamfara right now, as we speak. Coming over to your question, yes, I think I would agree with you, because if we could muster this strength, what have we been waiting for all this while? You know, we should be calling a spade by now. The killings ongoing in the country is becoming very disturbing to everybody. To everybody. I feel a bit embarrassed because my constituency is, you know, fully involved in this. When I mean fully involved, is so positioned to be able to take charge of this based on directives from the Commander-in-Chief's desk. But I think we should, as a government, be doing more to ensure that the social contract between the people and the government, or the governed, and those governing us, you know, is actually well addressed. As it stands now, individuals are beginning to feel that, look, they are not being well protected by government.
But let's even begin from the real fundamental issue, which would be, if are you able to diagnose exactly what is going on in Zamfara? With these killings. In the case of Zamfara, you hear bandits, unknown gunmen. In the case of Benue, you hear it's herdsmen, you know, killing farmers and all of that. Are you able to say this is exactly what is going on in Zamfara so that government can really come up with a lasting solution?
Ngozi, even as a security consultant, I must tell you this. One would only be trying to fool himself. I wouldn't say fooling you. Fool himself if you think you can boldly say this is the situation. Because only yesterday night I was thinking, is Boko Haram breaking out again in certain areas with so well armed to the teeth? Is it infiltration from ISIS? I mean, what is happening? One cannot really place it anymore. And so the best we can begin to talk about is, look, can we see how we enhance intelligence on ground? Can we seriously see how we engage local vigilantes in communities, in villages? I'm talking of people who are domiciled on ground.
Who understand the terrain.
Thank you, my dear. To work alongside with the security agencies. For instance, we are now deploying 1,000 men.
Yes.
Good. The 1,000 men could have been drawn partly from Sokoto, from Enugu, from Ibadan, and so on. On arrival in Zamfara, if you have a well-knowledgeable vigilante group on ground that really understands the ground, it's not just all about firepower. We must be able to work with real intelligence generated from those who know the ground, who should be able to tell us, look at what is happening here, look at what is happening here, see what we have, and so on. And then you work on that premise. Because I must be frank with you, a good number of Nigerians out there who are in the same position like I am, security experts and so on, are beginning to wonder what is happening.
Now, this brings us back to trying to make comparison between the Nigerian army or the Nigerian military that is known worldwide to be #1 on the African continent. We've shown it, we've expressed it, we have. It's known that the Nigerian army, no dispute when it comes to the African continent. If we compare to what is going on right now, do you think the standard of a Nigerian army has dropped when it comes to the deployment of intelligence, when it comes to the operation, when it comes to what it takes to defend the territorial integrity? Because this infiltration that the government itself has said they are from external forces, either they come from Mali or they come from Libya or whatever, it's an external aggression against the country.
I think we should be able to address this thing from two different perspectives. One has to do with, look, what is happening?
Yeah.
Where are these guys coming from? What is their objective? What is their aim? All right? Because we are aware of herdsmen, cattle, herdsmen and farmers.
Yes.
We heard of rustlers too coming in. And then we suspect too that maybe Boko Haram cells are sneaking in and so on. That is one aspect of it. The different part, the part two, or the other side of the coin, is that, look, like you rightly asked, are we saying standards may have fallen in the military and so on? I would not want to agree that standards have fallen in the military. Instead, I want to say there are internal deficits that still need to be addressed within the military.
Like what,
And
specifically?
the arrowhead of this internal deficit has to do with manpower issue.
Okay.
The military is so dissipated all over the country. As we speak, like we all know, it's in the public domain.
Yeah.
They are involved in over 27 states. What is the strength of the Nigerian army? Even when you add the Air Force, bring in the Navy, but given the sort of warfare we're talking about, the Navy is more of maritime, aspect. So we are more concerned with the land forces now, and maybe the level of air support we can get from the Air Force. So when you look at the two components, both the land component and the air component, what does it give us in terms of strength? Now, even these 1,000 men we are said to be committing now, they are drawn from certain areas where lapses may emerge in terms of manpower. So the point I'm trying to make here is that there are other internal lapses that needs to be addressed. I have always tried to talk about we addressing this manpower issue after breaking it into our short-term, medium, and long-term, solutions or arrangements. In the short term, we have retirees, soldiers. I'm not talking about officers like us. Retirees, because the actual manpower issue we're talking about has to do with the foot soldiers.
Yes.
There are enough officers to command the men in the field. There are retirees that are still able-bodied. I'm retired, I'm in the field, I know what I'm saying. That are still able-bodied. Some are working with us in our companies. When you look at some of them, you ask yourself, why can't we deploy people like this in the field? Get him to sign another 3-4-year contract. Give him what he does not bargain for and he will accept. And move on to serve his motherland. If we embark on that, we will mobilize a huge chunk of men. I know what I'm talking about. Which we could commit. Fine. Knocking them into shape does not take us 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
Because if we resort to the long-term solution, that means recruiting and sending to depot. They'll go through an incubatory period of 6-9 months before coming out
And
as
of
soldiers.
course, that will come at a cost and it will take a lot of time.
Thank you, my
But then
dear.
again, in addition to that, would you agree with the UN when it says, look, the conventional style that the Nigerian forces are, deploying in tackling these problems, they seem not to be mindful of the new dimensions of, of this security threats. And so they're not able to anticipate or meet these challenges the way they should in an unconventional manner. That seems to be where the problem is.
I will agree, because frankly speaking, the nature of the warfare we face now is a bit new to us. It's not the conventional type of warfare which we're all used to. So we must all accept we are still on a learning curve, so to speak. All countries that have experienced terrorism went through a learning curve, okay? So we shouldn't shy away from seeking assistance from countries that can give us such assistance, especially countries with a good history of terrorism, of fighting terrorism, so to speak. Okay? They are all there, Pakistan, India, the US, and so on. Okay? They could come over, carry out some training with our men in our various training institutions. We could also send some of our officers abroad. And they really get exposed with even brief period and stints in Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on, and come back home. We can do all this.
All right. What is the place of the fifth columnist that leaders have often talked about? And that is part of what a lot of people are scared or have concern that people or officers within the agency give out information, give out weapons, and we hear of ambushes sometimes, and so on. What impact is that having on the efficiency of,
in as much as I would not want to dismiss that as not being possible and so on, I think it would be unreasonable for me to dismiss that. Because like it is in every 12, you'll be told there is a Judah. But I don't see that having too much or having a heavy impact on what's ongoing. Okay, because look, I mean, does it go beyond you exposing troops movement and what have you? Telling the enemy forces they are carrying weapons. Were you expecting them to carry sticks? Of course, they are carrying AK-47 and what have you. So in most cases, it has to do with operational plans, okay? Movement, timings for bombings or whatever, and so on. And most of this information are tightly held at the top as classified. So for them to get leaked out, somebody could be held very responsible for that. How come this is happening? If there is an ambush which you don't anticipate and it occurs, you should be able to question those who held such classified information. What is happening?
But it doesn't seem that the military is ready to actually look within itself, in spite of that 10-man committee that was set up to investigate allegations of collusion on the part of, the military itself, especially as it pertains to both Benue and even Zamfara and all the other north-central states.
Ngozi, a lot of disciplinary lines of actions go on within the military, silently, which you are not aware of. Go on within the military, which you are not aware of. And at times, some of these lines, disciplinary lines of actions, are meant to regulate behavior of the men.
Yeah, so if one were to agree with you that, yes, we're not aware of some of these disciplinary actions, what about the results? I mean, the ordinary man on the streets wants to see the impact, at least feel the impact that something drastic is really being done to fix this. Are we seeing enough of, these results?
When such actions are carried out, the result is the absence of the negativities you would have seen in the field. So, if the regularity of the exposures we're talking about, for
the
instance,
attacks and the killings,
yes, and so on, is sculpted to an extent by virtue of certain lines of actions that are being carried. That is it. The absence of it. That is the action. But if we keep seeing more and more and more of it, then it means that something needs to be done. It means that we should be interrogating the sort of disciplinary lines of actions you are carrying out.
All right. Now, the 1,000 military forces is being deployed, or security agencies, to Zamfara. We have seen this could be likened to the operation Lafia Dole, operation Smile Crocodile Smile, operation Python Dance, operation Thunderstorm, operation whatever. Now, what should they be mindful of so that they come up with results that are lasting instead of, you know, for the meantime, they will be able to handle the issue, and then when they disembark and leave, the rustling continues or the killings continue. What should they be mindful of?
My main concern, and which I will urge the authorities, responsible for Zamfara to take charge of, to pay concern to, is the intelligence aspect of it all. It is the backbone of this operation. No intelligence, you cannot fight the sort of warfare we have out there now. We must be ready, and I'm happy. I read earlier yesterday that I think the president has asked the Air Force to bring in some surveillance equipment and so on. I don't know if you guys read about it, and so on. Yes. We should invest more now in technology, because the terrain, I don't know whether it was your network or it was some other network that showed a great deal of challenges, terrain challenges, which could deprive troops of reacting in a proactive manner or responding as expected because of the challenges of terrain. But with technology being applied, being engaged in such theater, you will discover that, look, a lot can be more achieved. If such surveillance equipment could give us the sort of result we need, it now allows the air component to be able to immediately move in and dislodge whatever is ongoing within the theater. But when we don't have such technology on ground, which I don't want to believe maybe we don't have, but if we don't have, I think the time has come for us to acquire.
Yeah, but some experts have already said that there's a need for permanent security centers in places like Zamfara, which indicates that there are no permanent structures on ground, you know, to meet this.
Then we should be expanding. I have always been a proponent of expansion of the Nigerian Defense Force, because sincerely, even as at when some of us were retiring, I kept telling myself, look, we need to beef up in terms of strength, in terms of equipment, in terms of holding and what have you. Okay, we must say this is a defense force for Nigeria that is commensurate with what is expected to be the role we should be playing within the sub-region, that is commensurate with what should be
the standards.
Yes, or what will be able to enable us project our foreign policy. Okay? If you don't have a strong defense, my dear, to an extent you cannot project your foreign policy. Just cast your mind back to the United States. What makes it talk so big? They've got what it takes. You need it.
And countries like Russia too.
Thank you, my dear. Yes. They've got what it takes. We have what it takes, at least within the sub-region. If we're not saying globally, at least within the sub-region, even within the entire Africa. But it's just that I think we have not prioritized our needs in such a manner that we address issues that really...
You touched on the need for external help or assistance earlier. Do you think government is actually, you know, from government's body language, that it's doing enough really to call on external help? I mean, countries like the US, Donald Trump has said we're willing to help Nigeria, you know, in fighting this or combating this crisis. And yet, we don't seem to be seeing much of that going on now.
No, I think there are moves in that direction already.
All right. Okay, Colonel Stan Labo, retired. Thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you, sir.